What's good, y'all? So, 2026 World Ultimate Championships are about to come up in just under a month's time. We actually have just a few weeks before it goes down. And there's been so many different things that have been coming out specifically about athletes who are either already qualified, athletes who are not competing, people asking questions of like, where's Julian Alfred in the 200? And just today, they actually announced some new features and different things like that. So, I wanted to break down just a quick overview of the Ultimate Champs and specifically like how athletes qualify and who is already qualified out of some notable names. Of course, I'm going to be talking about the sprints, the hurdles, and the jumps, but this applies across the board, and we'll see some specific examples. And I'll give you an understanding of why certain things. So definitely check the timestamps below. I also want to know I'll have some thought processes at the end of the video as it relates to some improvements that I think World Ultimate Champs can make for the future. Because I'll essentially start off saying I think the World Ultimate Championships is a very, very good idea. This is big because this is almost filling the gap of the quote unquote off year in track and field, the year that there is no world championships or Olympic Games. The World Ultimate Championships is providing an opportunity for athletes to actually have, a pinnacle to the season, to have a quote unquote major championships. Now, again, at the end, I'll talk a little bit more about why there's some conflicting information as it tends towards the future and certain things. But again, you can check the timestamps below. But first off, just context as it relates to the World Ultimate Championships. So World Ultimate Championships, there's going to be the first time that'll be hosted in the sport of track and field. It's going to be the culminating event for the 2026 season. It'll be going down in Budapest on September 11th all the way to September 13th of this year. I think this is going to be very exciting. Again, it's filling the gap of the off year that we previously didn't have. We didn't have Worlds, we didn't have Olympics. Now, Ultimate Champs is going to be occurring every 2 years, every even numbered year. So 2026, the next one is going to be 2028. After the Olympic Games, the next one will be 2030, the next one will be 2032 after the Olympic Games, and et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about that again at the end. You can circle back to that a little bit later. Additionally, not every single event is going to be at the Ultimate Championship. So they're going to have the 100, 200, 400, 800, 1500, 5000, 110 hurdles, 100 hurdles, 400 hurdles, and then some of the field events. You'll have high jump, pole vault, long jump, triple jump only for women, hammer throw only for the men, and then you'll have javelin throw. So no shot put, no discus throw, no steeplechase, no 10K, no men's triple jump, no women's hammer throw. And then also they only have the mixed relays, mixed 4x1, mixed 4x4. So again, we'll talk about this a little bit at the end, but overall, I think it's a good smattering of events across the board. So how do athletes qualify? This is the thing that I really want to dive into because there's been some discussion and maybe some confusion around how athletes actually do qualify. I know if you've been following in my lives, if you've been following in certain videos, I've been essentially tracking many of these different things. I'll bring these things up, specifically this road to the ultimate. The World Athletics has had this up since the top of the year, and athletes have been, running for qualifying spots since September 2025. Essentially, in any given event, all athletes who are in either top 16 or top 12, top 8 in the field events, they will get a spot and an invitation to the World Ultimate Championships. Doesn't matter, if there's 3 athletes from that country, if there's 5 athletes from the country. I think in the women's 200, there's like 8 athletes from the United States. So USA, I'm pretty sure you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 athletes currently qualified for the World Ultimate Championships. Now, it's a map depending on, if they actually go. We still have a few more Diamond League meets. But all 8 athletes, if they are in the top 16, they can go to the World Ultimate Champs for the 200 here from the United States. So I think similar in like Jamaica has like 5 athletes, maybe in the women's 100 or something like that. They can all go. So that's actually one of the things that many people in the sport have been asking for years to actually see. Can we just see a championships where all the top athletes, regardless of, how many from the country, all of them can go? We're getting that in the Ultimate Championships. And it actually makes me very, very exciting to see. So I'm excited for this. One of the big things I'm very, very excited for. Now, a couple things on how the athletes actually qualified. So I'll just start off with one of the notable athletes who's missing from this women's 200 is Julian Alfred. We all know Julian Alfred as the top 200 meter runner in 2026. She's run, 21.5. She's run 21.6. She's run 21.9, like 21.8. She's run a whole bunch of 21s. But To qualify, you have to have 5 races within this qualifying window from September 2025 all the way to September 1st, 2026. You have to have 5 races in the qualifying window. Julian Alfred is not listed on the top 16 in the women's 200, and she's not here at all on this list because she does not have 5 races. She only has 4 200-meter races in the qualifying window. So she needs to have 5 of them to actually be on this list. Now, because the window, one of the ways that you can qualify for World Ultimate Champs is either by being the defending Olympic champion, defending world champion, or if you win the Diamond League final in Brussels this year. So maybe Julian Alfred goes to the Brussels Diamond League final and she wins that 200 race. Then she'll have a 5th 200 and she'll be on the list. Maybe she doesn't want to actually do a double. And then she's like, oh no, I only want to focus in on the 100. So that's why she's not listed on here. TBD, we don't know. The other thing is that there's some athletes who have already let World Athletics know that they're not going to be competing at these World Ultimate Championships, either in a specific event or at all. So for example, notice here, we don't see Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, we don't see Femke Bol. As I noted, the Olympic champion and the world champion get a wild card. We actually do not see the reigning Olympic champion, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, and we don't see the reigning world champion, Femke Bol. Why? Because Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone let World Athletics know that she is starting a family, right? We just saw that she had her first child, so she's taking off this year. She's taken off of the ranking list, so that allows for someone else, to move up, and she's not taking up that spot. Also, Femke Bol, as we know, she's moved over into the 800, and she's probably let World Athletics know, I have no intention of running the 400-meter hurdles at the World Ultimate Championships. So guess what? She's not only not on this list, but she is explicitly on the 800-meter list because that's where she has let World Athletics know, I'm going to be competing in this event at the World Ultimate Championships, right? Also, as another example, you do have athletes who are injured and maybe pulled out of the year. For example, you have Kishane Thompson. Earlier in the year, Kishane Thompson, he was ranked like number 4. I think he was number 3 or number 4 based on, everything he had done over the past year. But he got injured. He pulled out of, a bunch of races earlier in the year, the World Relays, 200, like all these kind of things, the Chinese Diamond Leagues. And he eventually ended his season. So he's no longer competing. He let World Athletics know, hey, I have no intention of competing at World Ultimate Champs because my season is over. I'm injured. Cool. They took him off this list to allow for someone else to actually get a ranking spot. So those are some things to take into consideration. One thing before I move over is that very interesting is a Grant Holloway. So Grant Holloway actually has not competed all year, and he actually has been injured. He actually announced that he was dealing with injuries, but he is still listed here. Based on my understanding, World Athletics reached out to athletes, maybe within like the top 10 qualified athletes, maybe top 12 or something, because we're coming up to the end of the year, so rankings won't change as much. But Grant Holloway, similar to like a Kishane Thompson or a Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, he probably would have said like, hey, I have no intention of competing because I'm injured. But he still is listed. So again, who knows, right? Anything can change, but that's an interesting thing that you potentially get to see Grant Holloway compete at the World Ultimate Championships. Who knows? You can check the link in the description for this specific website, the Road to the Ultimate, if you haven't seen it, and you could, scroll through all the different events to see. Now, there is actually one last way that athletes can get an invitation and qualify to the World Ultimate Champs if they're not already the Olympic champion, the world champion, or if they don't win the Diamond League final this year, or if they're not in the world ranking. The 5th way is by way of an exceptional invitation from World Athletics. And it says here, World Athletics has the right to provide an entry to an athlete who, for whatever reason, has not qualified for the championships. This athlete would be within the above defined target numbers. Such exceptional invitation is limited to 1 per event, and unless notified otherwise, the deadline to allocate them is Monday, August 17th. So it's already August 20th by way of me recording this right now. So that means that I guess these things are already allocated, and we'll just find out a little bit later. But what this means is that if there's an athlete who has not, qualified in any other way, and World Athletics deems them to be an exceptional athlete that really they believe should be part of the World Ultimate Championships, they can give them an invitation in any given event. So a good example of this is Josh Kerr. In the 1500 meters, Josh Kerr is currently ranked number 76. So he is way far down the pack. And it's because he really only has 2 quality races that, would affect his ranking. He obviously ran the mile world record at the London Diamond League earlier this year. And he just won the Commonwealth Games of mile as well. So those are his really only two quality races. Outside of that, remember his world championships in Tokyo last year, unfortunately didn't go great. He caught a cramp, so wasn't able to finish well. So that didn't help his case in terms of rankings, leading him to be ranked number 76. So Josh Kerr is someone who definitely would fall in the bucket of like, okay, he can get an invitation. Another example would be like Elaine Thompson-Herah. Obviously, who knows if she even wants to compete, at the Ultimate Champs, considering this is her first season back after injury. But maybe she wants to get into the Ultimate Champs in the 100. She is outside of the top rankings. Maybe she asked for an invitation. Tia Clayton from Jamaica. She also is not in the rankings because she hasn't competed enough in the 100 meters. She's dealing with injuries and stuff, but maybe she's healthy and she wants to, ask for an invitation. So that's the kind of like last way that any athlete can actually get invited and qualify to the World Ultimate Championships. There are a few athletes who are going to be who are in the rankings, and I'm unsure of like how things will look. So you have Favor O'Philly in the women's 200. She seems to be very safe and seems like she's qualified through. And then in the women's triple jump, you have Velasco from represents Cuba. So she is safe and qualified through. She's in number 4. The reason I bring up these athletes is because both of them, Favor O'Philly as well as Velasco, they are not representing their countries. And at these World Ultimate Championships, you are not selected by your nation, but you do, they said it in here. They said when participating, the athlete's member federation will be acknowledged and recognized. And what this is in reference to is that athletes are going to be wearing the kits of their national federation. So for example, United States athletes, they're going to be wearing the American kits, right? Jamaican athletes, they're wearing the Jamaican kits, as opposed to like their sponsor kits or something along those lines. From my understanding, in the case of American athletes, USATF reached out to American athletes saying, hey, we are not selecting you for this team. That's all World Athletics. But because you will be wearing kits, if you have been contacted by World Athletics, that you have been given an invite to the World Ultimate Championships, let us know so we can provide you with the appropriate kit. I say all this to say, I wonder if Velasco, who no longer represents Cuba, but she's trying to transfer to Puerto Rico, from my understanding. So that's one aspect. And I think she's not even living in Cuba anymore. And then also in the women's 200, a little more high profile, Favor O'Philly is obviously no longer representing Nigeria. She's, been caught up in the whole situation around trying to transfer to Turkey. And even as recent as like last week, I saw she took a trip out to Turkey or something like that. So she's like full in. I don't know if they're going to go to the World Ultimate Champs and wear their, nation's kit. I don't know if they're required to. I'm assuming they're not. I'm assuming they're going to be fine to compete, but it's just something that I've been thinking about. And I don't know. They're the two athletes I think that are in that kind of situation. Now, the other thing is there's a few new features that have been introduced at the World Ultimate Championships for this first inaugural edition. Well, new features in the sense that they were just announced today as I'm recording this. First off, there's going to be a lane draft. So athletes competing in the men's and women's 200 will select their preferred semifinal heat and lane in world rankings seed order live as part of the day before. So they're going to make this into, a spectacle of sorts to make it kind of like bring the entertainment and all these different kinds of things. I'll talk about some of this a little bit later as well. But this concept is being trialed for the 200 at the Ultimates as part of the bold effort to transform the standard anonymous lane allocation process into an athlete-centered product that generates analysis and conversation before the competition has even started. So I think it's pretty interesting, right? You're going to see the top athletes selecting their lanes and selecting the heats that they actually want to be in. So as an example, let's say in the men's 200, the top seeded athletes are Noah Lyles, Letsito Boho, Kenny B. And I'm assuming it's going to be 3 heats of semifinals, with the top 2 from each semi, and then the next 2 best times going into the final. Noah Lyles, let's just say he's a top-ranked 200-meter athlete. He gets to pick whatever heat he wants to be in and whatever lane. Let's say he picks, all right, cool, I'm going to be in heat 1, and I want to be in lane 6, right? Letsile now can go based off that and say, cool, I get the second pick. I want to be in heat 2, and I want to be in lane 6. Kenny B, I want to be in heat 3. I want to be in lane 6. Then it goes down to the next ranked guy. Sinisifo Dambile has made an amazing season. Shout out to South Africa. Let's say he's like, okay, I want to be in heat 1 and I want to be in lane 5 after Noah Lyles. Let's say Brian Lavelle is like, hey, I want to be in heat 1 and I want to be in lane 7, also next to no allows. Let's say, Makacharamba next on line. I want to be in heat 1 and I want to be in lane 4 next to no allows, right? And all of that is like stacking up the heat, right? And now maybe you get to Zarnell Hughes and he's like, oh, okay, I want to be in heat 2 and I want to be in lane 4, whatever, right? So all I'm saying is there's an opportunity for some strategy here of the first top ranked athlete does get the, number one pick of their lane. But then as you go down the line, some of the lower level athletes also have a level of strategy. Oh, is Heat 1 already stacked up with Noah Lyles, with Dembele, with Brian Lavelle, right? If they selected that for whatever reason, cool. I'm going to go to the easier Heat to give me an easier path to qualify into the final, right? Like those are some of the strategies that might come into play when we're looking at this lane selection and Heat selection process, right? I think it's pretty interesting, and we'll see how it plays out, but is what it is. Round progression in field events. This is probably going to make people pretty disappointed. Now, first off, in the field events, there's only 8 athletes who are selected. So on the track, primarily there's 16 athletes, but in the field events, only 8 athletes are selected and qualified going into World Ultimate Championship. So you could see top 8 as it stands here. For the rules, except for the vertical jumps, round progression in the field events will use the format model 8-8-6-4. So there's only 4 rounds in the field events, none of the 6, and only a certain amount of athletes actually get, jumps or throws in those corresponding rounds. In round 1 and round 2, all 8 athletes will be entitled to an attempt. So again, I'm just using the jumps as reference. All 8 athletes will get 1 jump. In round 3, the 6 highest ranked athletes in the standings after the second round will be entitled to an attempt. So cut down, 2 of the athletes and only 6 of them get an attempt in the third round. Then in round 4, you cut down 2 more athletes. Only the 4 highest ranked athletes in the standings after the third round will be entitled to an attempt. So 4 rounds, they're chopping things down. From my understanding as to why this is going into effect here is because a larger percentage of the event can be shown. So, right, there's just less athletes, who are competing, and there's less rounds. So you could show more of the field events in theory. And then also, apparently, they identified that there are less changes in late rounds. There's less lead changes in late rounds, like 5 and 6, and it's rare that low-ranked people actually do win. So they wanted to cut out rounds and people, and in general, it won't impact who actually wins. That's again, like, shout out to Young Jumps. He posted this on Instagram because I think that the field community is not satisfied with this kind of setup, and also, I mean, there's a bunch of field events missing, but I don't know. That's something to think about, but is what it is. Then there's some other aspects and updates. So refined broadcast product, new elements, including fan feedback, and updated broadcast graphics package featuring augmented reality, athlete headshots, win probabilities, predicted finishing positions, refreshed look and feel, race clock shifting to the center of the screen to better serve a vertical screen experience. I mean, so some of these things, like, we've seen in different capacities. If you've been paying attention to like the Diamond League, they've toyed around with different aspects. Obviously, Grand Slam track, even Athlos, right? There's different elements of things that in the past that have existed in track and field that are kind of being incorporated here, and there's new things that are actually being incorporated here as well. So now, one thing that I did want to take a look at is here. So reimagining of awards means no medals. So there won't be any medals given out. All athletes will receive a participation token, TBD on what that looks like. Ultimate champions, so the winners, will each earn a trophy designed to connect with their participation token to form a complete piece. Again, we'll find out more information on like what that will actually look like, but that's interesting, and it kind of connects with something else I'm thinking about as it relates to this being a global championships. And World Athletics like wanting to make this into a global championships, but that is something a little bit new. So those are some of the different things that they are doing. Now, I do want to move over to what the future looks like for the World Ultimate Championships. And first of all, I'm actually very, very excited for the Ultimate Championships. As I said, I think it's great that we're getting an opportunity to have something that's filling in the gap that an off year didn't have before. We get to have a major championships in 2026, right? There's no Worlds, there's no Olympics. So Ultimate Championships is going to be that peak. Back in like January, athletes were like, maybe I'll see, whatever. Now this year, by the time we got to like June, July, every athlete for the most part was like, I want to be there. And athletes are also getting paid. Like, they're getting paid they're getting paid. So here they actually have how the prize pot will be distributed. So if you win, you get $150,000. If you win any of your events, 75,000 for second, 40,000 for third, and then all the way down to even 16th place gets $2,000. So no one goes home without a check, right? No one goes home without a check. Every single person gets paid. And $2,000 to finish 16th is it's like it's kind of crazy, right? The other thing that I'm kind of interested in is the idea that not all events are going to be contested here. So as I said, there's mostly not field events and then also like the steeple, the 10K, but in here. So why are some events included and others not? The World Ultimate Championship spans 9 days with 13 or 14 sessions. In contrast, the Ultimate Championships will be a 3-day event with just 3 evening sessions, so a shorter session, each of around 3 hours. This means not every event can be included, but each session offers a carefully curated mix of track events, jumps, and throws, ensuring the entire stadium is buzzing and fans are on the edge of their seats. So really what they're saying in this here is that the schedule is tight, right? Like they want to make sure that they can create a truly made for TV product, and not every event can be included. But from my understanding, I think in subsequent years they might rotate events and different things like that. So I can understand this. Now, initially when they did announce the events that would be contested and the ones that wouldn't, I do remember news reports said that World Athletics had actually done some surveys and some had gotten feedback and about the different events that were actually the most interesting, and so they cut certain ones. I don't know. I haven't seen like actual data. I don't know like what that is, but we'll see. But that's at least the reason why some certain events are not included. But one thing that I guess I'm thinking about as it relates to this is with the World Ultimate Championships, they say that they want this to be a true global athletics championships and a capstone similar to a World Championships or Olympic Games, right? So there's never been a better time. Demand for world-class athletics events is at an all-time high, and 2026 is the only year without a major global athletics milestone like a World Championships or Olympic Games. We have curated this must-see new event to ensure every athletics season culminates with a major global championship with real meaning for the athletes, fan, media, and broadcasters. So going back to the idea of like some events not being included and some being included, I find a little bit of conflict here because it's like this wants to be the World Championships or an Olympic Games, right? The capstone, right, to a major, like the major global championships that culminates every season, culminates in it. But then like certain athletes don't get that opportunity to have a major global championships, right? So it's kind of like a little teetering on, we want one thing, but then we're showcasing another thing. So it's a little tricky. And then on top of this, the other thing is the other question. So how will this work in the 2028 an Olympic year where there's already a major championships? Here it says the Ultimate Championships will close out the season in 2028 following the LA Olympic Games, right? So that makes sense. It'll be the end, but it just won't be the focus, right? Just like in 2024, when athletes delivered some of their best performances in the Diamond League after Paris, the 2028 edition will harness the same momentum and energy, ending the year on a high. So I understand this, but I am a little like, this is interesting because they compared to the World Championships and the Olympic Games prior as to why they're creating this, right? It's going to be the capstone, but then comparing to a Diamond League afterwards maybe kind of dilutes it a little bit. And we know it's just the nature of how our sport is structured as it exists. The Olympic Games is always the pinnacle of the sport. Like it is what every single athlete is working towards throughout their entire careers. Now, we can debate whether that needs to change or whatever, but like at the end of the day, that's the case. And we remember many athletes after 2024 who actually shut down their seasons. Melissa Jefferson Wooden, Noah Lyles, Quincy Hall, who else? Keely Hodgkinson. Like there was Thea Lafon, right? There was a lot of Olympic champions who just shut down their seasons. Now, things may change if the World Ultimate Championships is paying out all this money, after 2028. But just to put that in context, coming after an Olympic Games is going to be a challenge. I think, and I'll just to like kind of sum all this up, I personally think that the World Ultimate Championships is a very, very, very good idea. I feel like we do need something to fill in the gap of the off year, the quote unquote off year, so that athletes have an opportunity to compete for something at the end of the year as a major championships when we don't have the Worlds or the Olympics. I do think teetering with which events will be included, maybe rotating every 2 years with the different events, and then also having it after the Olympic Games. I'm personally not a big fan of that. I feel like if you made it every 4 years in the quote unquote off year, right? Eliminate that off year and have it as the World Ultimate Championship year and have all the events and but still keep it short. I don't know, like maybe not have it as a full week like the world champs, but have it maybe over 4 days, right? Like I think that actually might be like more enticing, to keep it like very interesting, to keep it almost intriguing, to set expectations and to build excitement towards, oh wow, okay, done with the Olympics, done with world champs, great, we're going to the World Ultimate Championship year, right? And it's only semifinals and final, or it's only in the field events, it's only the top 8, and still no cap to the amount of athletes from each country. I think that would be a better opportunity, as opposed to having it in the Olympic year after the games are over, and then also teetering on like which events to include and which events to not include. I feel like it's maybe like they're trying to make a decision on like what they want to do, but I don't know. Those are like some little criticisms. But overall, I really think this is a very good idea. And in general, we should start to treat the World Ultimate Championships like a true championships. You know what I'm saying? Like make it to be the big event for an off year again, TBD on the Olympic year and stuff like that. But make it like that. And I'm pretty excited for it. So this was very quick. This was like off the cuff, just like going through some stuff, going description for, certain links. And let me know what you think. Appreciate y'all.